used to just feast off of Cincinnati, and it was a playoff game. I wasn't 100% when I got in that game, but I wanted to play. I remember I went around the sideline, and I could have easily stepped out of bounds, but I didn't. And that's just the nature of the beast.
And he was tackled by my teammate Kevin Walker right in front of me. And the tackle was one of those tackles where a guy dove on the back and grabbed him down from behind. I was at the game. It was just a normal tackle. It wasn't a bone-crushing tackle or anything like that.
I used to go to all the football games at the Coliseum. I've seen many of the games there where guys got hit and it looked like they were knocked out completely, but didn't look like he got crushed.
He slid down and grabbed my legs, and when he grabbed, I pulled my left leg free. And running as fast as I was, he clamped down on my right leg and was able to hold onto my right leg and stop me in my tracks. I was running with such force, my momentum kept going forward.
If he'd have been a less powerful athlete, he probably wouldn't have had that kind of shearing force to his hip joint, and he would have gone down in a tackle and he would have been fine. But he has such powerful legs, and that's what really got him.
I dislocated the hip out of the backside of the pelvic socket, and as soon as it dislocated, I knew it. And when I hit the ground, I rolled. And when I did that, I popped it back in the socket while I'm rolling, and it popped back in the socket. And I stood up, and I went to take my first step, and it felt like somebody jabbed an ice pick up in my pelvic socket. The pain on a scale of 1 to 10, it was about a 25.
When he first got it, nobody knew he was hurt bad because he just kind of limped off the field a little bit.
I got to the sideline, and I looked up in the stands because I always found my wife up in the stands because I knew that she was word step. And I just waved at her and told her, I just gave her a thumbs up like I'm all right. But deep down inside, I'm like, I know this isn't all right.
They showed him sitting down. I knew something's wrong somewhere. Yeah, I didn't know how bad it was, but yeah, something was wrong.
And I remember the doctor coming up to me and he says, yeah. I said, how's Bo? Is he all right? He says, yeah. For some reason, he thinks his hip came out of socket and went back in. That's impossible. Well, that's what happened.
As the afternoon progressed, he's getting a ride back to his car and he's going back to the hotel they stayed at, and he wasn't moving at all. There was something odd about that. He didn't have that invincibility look anymore for some reason.
I remember the news came out that he had a hip pointer, which, you know, is a bruise to the side of the hip over the top of the pelvic bone there, which is a common injury, which is a contusion, basically, where you got bruised.
Bruised hip pointer, okay, dislocated hip. All right, you can return from any of those things, and not really understanding why, the days were past, the months that he didn't return.
Of course, he had tried to negate the problem for several weeks and didn't say much about it. Tough guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that I think part of his persona is, even if his ribs are broken or his hip's out of joint, that he wasn't going to let anybody know, and he would still somehow, I think that's what made him great, he could trick himself into believing he's fine.
When the season was over with, Dr. Joyce, who was the team physician for the Kansas City Royals, was doing a preseason physical on him, and Bo told Dr. Joyce that he was having pain in his hip. He was limping.
The blood vessel of your femur bone keeps the cartilage alive around that femur bone. And I severed that blood vessel when I dislocated my hip. So I was bleeding inside of that area. And when I saw the x-rays, I had to literally sit down because I got sick to my stomach and got lightheaded at the same time. I knew at that point that my football career was over. And I knew then that I had to have a hip replacement.
was kind of heartbreaking because you'd grown up now with this whole Bo Knows campaign and this whole idea of him and who he was. And then it was just this freak thing where he's running down the sideline and didn't look that bad at first. And then to find out the extent of it.
It wasn't an extension of him trying to play two sports that made that happen. It wasn't like he was, using himself up all summer and then he wasn't ready to play football or he wasn't in shape. That wasn't the case. It was sort of just kind of a freak injury.
The Royals